Welcome to another episode of Tactical Analysis, and this time we will be looking at the Babolat Pure Drive Roddick Plus. That's the 2012 version, and in it we've got it strung up with a Volkl Cyclone Tour 17, so that's the 1.25mm version. And I'll do the usual, I'll pull up some stats from the Racket Recommender tool and the string performance database. We'll have a look, see what we can expect out on court, and then I'll detail my actual experience once I got onto the court. So I'll look at the positives, the negatives, and then the types of player that this setup would suit. So first things first, I've got the Racket Recommender tool here, and for the Pure Drive Roddick Plus, the 2012 version, I'm going to highlight a few stats that I think are noteworthy, such as the extended length being 27.5 inches. We've got a head size of 100 square inches and a vibration frequency at 163.9 hertz, which is above average on the vibration frequency scale. So we could expect a little less comfort than your average racket, but also a little bit more spin and consistency in terms of height and trajectory control. So moving on, we've got a shot speed here at 66.2 miles an hour recorded. So again, very high. That indicates to me that it'll probably be good on put away shots, on serves if you're tall enough to have that margin for error on flat serves, and just general power from the back of the court, although you are probably sacrificing a bit of consistency, as with that higher shot speed comes a lot less length control. So those are the stats that I wanted to highlight for the Pure Drive Roddick Plus. And I'm going to move on to the string, which is the Cyclone Tour, the Volkl Cyclone Tour 17. And again, just a few stats that I thought were interesting. The stiffness rating at 170.9 pounds is below average for a polyester, well, very low for a polyester, to be fair. And alongside that, we've got a deflection of 33.8 millimeters, which is very high. With that, you'd expect a lot more movement, a lot more access to snapback, which is when the main slide on the crosses, and snapback imparting extra spin on the ball. And we've also got quite a long dwell time at 36.9 milliseconds. So that combined with a energy return at 82.6%, you'd expect a lot of spin and a lot of comfort, since the impact is spread out over a longer period of time. The lower energy return generally means that the ball compresses less as it hits the string bed, meaning it retains more speed off of the string bed, and you'd expect a higher shot speed on average off of every shot, whether it be your serve, your ground strokes, your volleys, whatever. So yeah, those are a few of the stats I wanted to highlight. Pretty interesting setup right from the off, looking at these numbers, but I'll go into my actual on-court experience. I'll detail the positives, the negatives, and then who I think this setup would suit. And on to the first positive that struck me, that was the amount of comfort I experienced playing with this setup. It really did surprise me. Probably one of the most comfortable, if not the most comfortable setup I've ever used. And I may not be the best person of comparison, as I usually use stiffer setups, but this really did strike me in that regard, as I barely felt anything in terms of impact. Didn't feel anything on my wrist, my elbow, my shoulder. So that was quite interesting. Since the racket is quite stiff with a frequency of 163.9 hertz, I didn't expect this, but of course the string at 170.9 pounds coupled with a energy return at 82.6%, which is very low. You've got the dwell time as well at 36.9 milliseconds, spreading out the impact over a very long period of time. That really does overpower the stiffness of the racket and makes the setup very comfortable. So yeah, really cool indeed. And moving on, of course, with that extremely high deflection at 33.8 millimeters, comes access to a lot of spin, and especially I found on my serve and my kick serve in particular, I wasn't even using a particularly quick racket head speed, but the access to spin was noticeable, and I was still getting kick off the surface. I did play, admittedly, on a gritty hard court, which is helpful for kick serves, but still, to see that ball kicking and changing direction quite viciously at times off of not a particularly high racket head speed, that was very positive as well. So yeah, great spin, great comfort, and also it was really good at defending the net. So with that extra length that you get from the racket, you get extra net coverage. So I know it's just half an inch, but it does make a difference. And couple that with the 100 square inch racket head, you can cover a lot of ground. And if you're a taller player, 6'1" and above, even more helpful. You get to cover more of that racket and be even more of an imposing figure at the net. But it's good for defending the net also, because it requires zero effort to get the ball deep. You've got that extremely powerful setup from the racket and the string. So if you're dealing with incoming pace, you really just have to put the racket there, and you can block it deep and keep yourself at least on a neutral terms in terms of rallies. So yeah, very cool, and I thought that was really enjoyable to play up at the net. I'm definitely not a net player, but to be able to come forward to the net and use the setup strengths in that regard was another interesting experience. So let's move on to some of the negatives, and the most important one is there's absolutely zero control without a dampener. I tried it, and this problem becomes even more severe when you're indoors, where the air is thinner and length control is even less than usual. It's just a joke how poor the control is over length, over height, and over general trajectory. So it becomes almost impossible. And so in order to counter that, I had to use a dampener, and I usually use a O dampener. Doesn't really matter which brand you use, as long as it's not too heavy. 2 grams or less is fine. I use the Pros Probe just because they're good value for money. So I stuck that in, and I was able to maintain control over the trajectory much more effectively. And so that negated the lack of control problem. But still, because it's so powerful, length control isn't really a strength of this racket. Moving on, it ties into the lack of control. It's difficult to maintain aggression from the baseline consistently. You may be able to do it for a few rallies, but over the course of a set, and even more so over the course of a match, best of 3 match, best of 5 match, you will find periods of time where you just lack control, because keeping your foot on the gas is really difficult. You have to rein in your shot speed if you're going to stop yourself from making too many errors going long or even going wide. So when I say lack of length control, it does affect width control, as well as the radius, the potential radius for where your ball can land expands. And so it affects balls going long and also going wide. And so finally, the last negative is the maneuverability. Being extended length and a swing weight of 333, definitely not the most maneuverable racket. And for me especially, I don't have much racket head speed anyway. And so that combined with a heavy racket is doubly bad for me. But it was negated a little bit by the really incredible access to snapback because of the high deflection. So yeah, a pretty interesting racket. I still would say that's a negative, because if you was to put in a string that doesn't have as much access to snapback, then you're going to have problems creating spin unless you have really quick racket head speed in the first place. So yeah, those are the positives and the negatives I took away from my on-court experience. Overall, one of the most interesting setups I've had, one of the most enjoyable experiences I've had out on court. I'm not sure I could take this into a tournament situation and be successful, as it doesn't really suit my style of play. I'm not really a net player. I don't have a big serve, which is unfortunate because I really enjoyed it. But hey, what can you do? So on to the types of players that this setup would suit. First, I think it would be the serve and volleyer. So anyone that has a decent net game, anyone that has a decent serve and wants to combine the two, I definitely feel you'd be able to do so with this setup, as it's just so good off of both shots. It's so good at defending the net, it's so good at attacking the net and overhead smashes with that extended length and the shot speed. Really effective at keeping the pressure on or just putting the ball away outright. And of course, you've got access to spin if you've got more time, so you can really use the backhand slice on those volleys to carve the ball away. And on your serve, you can use all sorts of spins to keep the returner guessing and off balance. The next or the last type of player I think would benefit from this type of setup would be a more patient player, but who's a tricky all-courter. So has a decent serve, has a decent all-round game really at the net and the baseline, but is patient and I wouldn't say a pusher, although some would argue it is, but more of a neutral defensive counter puncher almost, that likes to use different types of spins to frustrate their opponents, and who enjoys throwing in almost a lot of junk as well. They might not have the greatest power in the world, but they're able to use the angles and the different types of spins that this setup can create to their advantage to draw errors from their opponents. So yeah, that is my review on this setup. I thought it was really cool overall. And yeah, thank you everyone for watching. I do appreciate it. If you enjoyed it, it might be worth checking out other videos that we've got coming up soon. I do plan to release a few more reviews, maybe one more with this setup, as I might test it out with another string. But yeah, until then, I'll hopefully see you all there, and everyone, take care.